Today, we are doing a 2-round 2026 NFL mock draft. Below my face is my board. It is all the players I've studied in all 22. If you do see a star next to their name, that means they'll most likely be taking a drop. But let's get right into this. Again, if you guys are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. If you do want to see all of my player evaluations and even broken down with both a description as well as a by category grade, go to the Patreon, $5 a month, and you get extended versions of all the positional rankings videos and some exclusive content with some cool interviews from behind the scenes of some players that we'll be talking about maybe today or what we talked about before. Let's get into this. Number one overall, no trades today because we do a 3-rounder with trades every week as well. But before we jump into it, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. I have teamed up once again with DraftKings Sportsbooks to bring you guys an incredible offer. New customers bet $5 to instantly get $200 in bonus bets. Just make sure to use my code HMS when signing up. Love the thrill of live betting? DraftKings has you covered. Bet live on in-progress games right as they happen. If sports betting is not yet legal in a state that you live in, do not worry. DraftKings still has you covered with their daily fantasy option. I live in the state of Texas, so this will be something that I will be partaking in. Make sure to use the code HMS when signing up, and a huge thank you to DraftKings once again for sponsoring this episode. Let's get this started with the number one pick being the New Orleans Saints. This is in current Super Bowl odds as of the time I'm making this video. If you guys are wondering why I am wearing essentially an American flag blanket, I would look a lot nicer underneath it. I have an actual polo, but obviously some stuff happened today and, it's extremely tragic. Want to be able to show at least some sort of reverence and respect. If you guys are having some tough time after, seeing some things or hearing some things, by all means, I'm here as a resource to make sure you guys are okay. Feel free to always reach out through any sort of social media or even in the comment section below. We're a loving community. Make sure that we show love and respect for each other. Number one overall, New Orleans Saints. Again, no trades on this particular mock draft because I do one with 3 rounds every week that do have trades. But we are going to go the QB route. And Lenoris, I think, is the best talent in the class. I hate to be so boring for my Saints fans, but it just is like reality. There's a certain point. I like to blend my own opinion with realism as well as a little bit of fun. And the problem is realism with nepotism is a legit thing. Not to say Garrett Nussmeier is a bad quarterback in any way, shape, or form, but it does make me want to curve what I would do myself to go after a player that just kind of feels a little bit set in stone with where the Saints are picking at the top, given that his father is the offensive coordinator. So Garrett Nussmeier goes number one. At number two, again, we just want to keep this quick and simple. I don't want to be, bouncing around. We have 64 picks to talk about, and every single day I talk about these top 2, top 3 picks, and Lenoir Sellers is my top guy. I was talking about him with the number 1 pick. I think he's special. The problem with Lenoris is that he needs to get better at processing. That's his biggest Achilles heel. It was looking like he was getting a lot more comfortable as the season went on, but it does look like he's taking a little bit of time to get back to form. At number 3 for the New York Jets, I've been pretty adamant on just continuing the quarterback train. Justin looks a lot better. I'm praying that he ends up being this consistent throughout the year, and similar to how the Giants are sitting here at number 4, that maybe the Jets also will be here because maybe they just ran into some tough schedule. If that ends up happening, I'm going Caleb Downs or Peter Woods here, but I'm actually going to go still after the quarterback route. Again, I don't want to go too into depth over this. I've talked about these quarterbacks every single video for you guys. And, Drew Aller, he's used to playing in this type of cold environment. He's also a lot bigger, has crazy arm talent. Mendoza would be a better fit if they want to continue a more mobile offense, but Drew Aller is no slouch as an athlete. I do think he gets a little too much flack for being, less mobile than maybe someone like Lenoir Sellers, but Drew Aller is still a damn good talent. At number 4 for the New York Giants, excited to see our guy. Why am I tripping up on Toledo defensive interior's name from last year, Darius Alexander? I'm excited to see him finally get on the field. Don't understand why he's not. Granted, one of the best defensive lines in the whole entire league, if not the best. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to carve out some snaps there, but I've seen some people try to take defensive interior, not on my radar. Caleb Downs and Spencer Fano, those are the two. And Caleb Downs, best player in the class outside Lenoris, and probably is better than Lenoris, but I boost him for positional value. But Spencer Fano, very, very close behind. He is a nasty guy. My quick note here is nasty finisher. That just does not sound right to say on a YouTube video, so we're gonna pretend like I didn't say that. But the offensive line is certainly something you always want to continue upgrading, and especially in a division with like the Eagles and stuff. Honestly, no disrespect to the NFC East, but kind of one of the weakest in terms of defensive lines. Like if for the edge rushing cores, like the Eagles love Nolan to death, love Jalex, but you're talking about that and you're comparing it to pretty much all these other teams having like noticeably better edge cores. I'm bringing up the Eagles. Let's not even talk about the Cowboys. Again, shout out, all loved Marshawn Nealon, friend of the show. But again, we're not talking about them in the creme de la creme, the top of the top. And then Washington, we've been asking to get them edge rushers forever. So I will just say it is maybe a little bit less of a pressing issue than I initially thought. But I do think you need to continue developing that defense or that offensive line group. It's never a bad idea. Spencer Fano's still going to be my selection, but maybe in the future I will throw the curveball. Caleb Downs going to be going to the Carolina Panthers here at number 5. Again, just going best player available. The top picks, again, the draft order will change, and then that will also shift what teams want what, and then we'll also shift the overall order of how these guys go. But it does kind of feel like right now we're seeing a pretty solid grouping of players here. Quarterbacks probably 1 to 3, and then Spencer Fano and Caleb Downs being at 4 and 5 respectively. At number 6, though, for the Tennessee Titans, Peter Woods. He's been very unproductive this year so far. I mean, a 5.3% pass rush win rate is not gonna lie, kind of pathetic. So, I mean, I love Peter Woods. A lot of people are saying this combination of Woods and Parker. Parker are having 10.9% pass rush win rate. He has a 7.9% like pressure rate, amount of pass rushes to pressures, which is just not good. But he does have an overall like block win percentage, I believe, of 27%. So hopefully, we'll see about that. I don't really fully understand what PFF is necessarily grabbing their data from, because I literally looked at this last night. But they're talking about this being Brian Brzee and Miles Murphy. Now, I liked both. I liked actually Peter Woods more than Brzee, and then Miles Murphy noticeably more than TJ Parker. But it's an interesting idea because Peter Woods and TJ have been very unproductive this year so far, leaving me at number 6 to go after a player who accounted for over 80% of his team's passing yards in a pretty sad loss. And that is Jordan Tyson here, wide receiver at Arizona State. This guy's an absolute baller. I mean, there's a cornerback, I think his name is like Shelley or something like that, from Mississippi State. He ended up having like his phone that says Jordan Tyson who, and it's like Jordan literally accounted for the only touchdown and over 80% of his team's yardage through the air. Can't really say that you're going to like try to call out Jordan Tyson. You could end up saying like Sam Levitt, who Jordan Tyson, fantastic player. I mean, a legit number 1 in the NFL. Hard to kind of see how, unless you're like a big Mekhi Lemon fan, which I am. He's my wide receiver 3 right behind Chris Bell by a quarter of a point. And he's in my top 20. So obviously I'm a pretty damn big fan of him. Like that's the only guy I could truly see taking over Tyson, depending on where you put your value in these players. And number 7 for the Vegas Raiders, I am hoping Peter Woods bounces back and gets better. If we want to look at the defensive interior class, like Caleb Banks needs to get healthy. But Christian Miller, I mean, definitely somebody who I am a huge fan of. We just haven't seen him versus translatable talent so far. Versus Peter Woods, who actually at least has versus LSU. Shout out to Josh Thompson. Love Josh Thompson. One of the players who I'm kind of pissed that I don't have a grade on right now, because I think he'd end up probably garnering a first. But Peter Woods, I think, has to be the option here. There's not really many other players. I would say if you want to go like crazy in terms of like, all right, this is one that people just won't do, but I want to. Where the hell is this man? Is Dylan Thieneman listed that low? Damn. The hell? Oh, come on, PFF. Dylan Thieneman's an absolute monster, but if you really want to go after someone like unique and special, that's a really cool way to throw a curveball. But we're going to go Peter Woods. Again, the defensive interior, we've been trying to beg this damn team for decades at this point to really solve it. At number 8 for the Miami Dolphins, they're going to be tearing this whole thing down. And to me, it's between Fernando Mendoza as well as a unique option here in Kenyon Sadiq. Kenyon Sadiq fits exactly what the Dolphins go for in tight ends. After the catch ability, really good athleticism, but Kenyon Sadiq's a better blocker than any of the tight ends that they've had that are of that mold. And tight end does go this high when it is that good. We just saw, what was it, 10 and 16, and then Brock Bowers, or it might have been 10 and 15. Brock Bowers the year before at 16. Like, this might be in the top 10, but we're seeing that the majority of these tight ends that get taken high make a big impact. And if Tyreek Hill is not going to be there for the long haul, obviously you're trying to tear shit down. Kenyon Sadiq's a great way to be able to start said rebuild. And there's just not many tight ends that are remotely close to that talent level in the class. At number 9 for the New England Patriots, again, TJ Parker is someone who I think I'm going to gladly continue to let slip. I'm going to be going Ruben Bain Jr. here, edge rusher out of Miami. There's not a right tackle I feel super comfortable with here at number 9. And then there's not a receiver I feel as comfortable as going after the top end superstar. The numbers speak for themselves, granted. One of them is against, pretty much a nobody, but that's college football for you. He still ended up dominating versus Notre Dame with some really solid offensive linemen. Ruben Bain Jr., if you were to take him, hell, if you wanted to take him at number 5, I'm not going to complain. If you want to take him at 6, not going to complain. Like, there's definitely a demand for Ruben Bain in the top 5 to top 10. At number 6, the hell? At number 10, we have the Los Angeles Rams. And, at this point, based on the players available, I'm running this to the podium. Fernando Mendoza definitely needs to continue improving in terms of the accuracy overall. But, he's feeling a lot more comfortable now with Surratt and, that contested catch ability. I love the idea of Mendoza getting more and more comfortable in the red zone. Mateer is absolutely also in the consideration here. He might be a little bit more in terms of the athleticism and like just flashy plays over Mendoza. But I will say Mateer's overthrows are just really, really annoying. But this is a free top 10 pick, and you probably will be sitting Mateer for 1 year because I assume Matt Stafford will continue to play at a certain level. I just don't think that outside of Mendoza and Mateer, there's another quarterback that remotely provides the upside that's worth it for the Rams with their 2 firsts. So I'm actually going to go Mateer here. I think he's the better athlete, the better arm, and if tweaked properly, the higher ceiling quarterback, even though Mendoza is my QB2. At number 11 for the Seattle Seahawks, there's certainly some other positions that I want to look at. If you really wanted to roll the dice on Mendoza, I wouldn't mind it because I just still don't believe in, first off, we'll see if Kubiak can end up like maximizing how you guys perform because I love the fact that you guys are just feeding JSN. But I will say, I'm not a huge fan of Milroe for the long haul. And I really hope I'm wrong about that because I really liked Jalen Milroe for a time. I think he was a QB1 of mine for at least like a week or 2 of the year. And obviously came down to earth. But, I definitely want the best for y'all. I would say there's 2 positions I'd look at. Corner is one that I've already exercised for y'all, and I really do like it. The other one is edge. And based on some contracts coming up and all that, I'm going to throw a curveball here. I'm going to go after one of the most talented players in the country that no one talks about, David Bailey. He has a 100% pass rush, not win rate, but winning against the block, like a win rate in terms of just overall winning the block, not pass rush win rate, which is already at 34.8%, 100% according to PFF. So, if you want to go with the 34%, by all means, I don't care. Yes, he's gone up against nobodies, but he's consistently had like 20+%. And this dude is still, look at this, almost like he is getting so close to being the upper echelon of both pass rush and run stop rate. He's a name that just doesn't get enough love. And I think that, especially a team like the Seahawks, historically, they've been able to look like they're reaching here and there. But I definitely believe that David Bailey, talent-wise, is one of the best edge rushers in the entire class. And I love the versatility he brings, and Mike McDonald loves his versatile players. At number 12, Dallas Cowboys. If you guys really wanted to go after, like, Keldrick Falk, TJ Parker, LT Overton, swap it with this one because I'm going to go LT Overton out of Alabama. First off, again, we're talking about, plus in terms of run stop rate and pass rush win rate. Again, weird week 2. Hello. That's not what I meant to do, but Again, already 4 pressures on the year, not necessarily a ton of pass rush snaps. Look at that. 1 out of every 6. So I like the fact that you're getting a good enough consistent pressure, but he also has the build. And I know that Bama, just in general, they use him too much. Like, I'm just not a fan of where they line him up. It's not really projectable for the success that I expect out of LT. But again, really good player. Very much in support of that selection there. At 13 for the Indianapolis Colts, you guys don't actually look that bad. And it's so funny. I never really think about this, but I always take Mendoza to y'all regardless. I apologize about that. But quarterback is the way. I mean, Daniel Jones looks adequate, which would that mean you want to go Cade Klubnik, who's a higher floor quarterback? Maybe. But we're going to go Fernando Mendoza. Again, he's playing in Indiana, has the higher ceiling. To me, he's my QB2 coming into the year because I just dropped Arch out of the equation. And again, Arch is not considered in this. If you guys have not picked that up already, I apologize if I'm explaining that for the first time. But number 14, regardless, the Pittsburgh Steelers. You could talk about Cade Klubnik here, but I will say, do you want to go after the 6th quarterback or do you want to go and potentially upgrade somewhere else? I'm a little bit more in the latter situation, like where you can end up going after Lamu. You can go after Tiernan. Tiernan's having a little bit of a struggle year so far, that being 3 pressures over 2 weeks. Because, I mean, again, he allowed a total of 13 pressures all of last year. But, Lamu, definitely somebody who I think might be a little bit more of our style. The tackles, I mean, you could talk about Tiernan, you can talk about Lamu. That's certainly, I mean, you could wait till round 2 if you wanted to. The problem is the tackle class just gets so bad. I love Tomas Rimac. I do not think he's a good offensive tackle. I do not know why he is playing tackle at the moment, especially the right tackle position. But yeah, for me, it's going to be like the big needs for the Steelers are going to be corner. They're going to be offensive tackle, and it's going to be quarterback. You can talk about wide receiver as well. Calvin Austin, I just kind of hope that we can pay him like 10 to 12 million or 10 to 15 million a year and just kind of solidify that true 2 spot and draft a 3rd, maybe in this round or with our 2/3. Do we have 2/3 or am I just a dumbass and ended up trading? I think I ended up trading with the Steelers no, we got George Pickens trade. Anyways, I do think if we're going to be in Pittsburgh and Cade Klubnik's there, this does kind of feel like a Pittsburgh Steelers pick. I think we got to do it. I mean, unfortunately, I don't want to be like we get Cade Klubnik here. Not the biggest Cade Klubnik guy. I still think he's very solid, but, if we're going to be sitting here, it is kind of quarterback bonanzas. I mean, Bo Nix ended up going as, the last in that group. Technically, it was McCarthy, but, I mean, who gives a shit? We're still, the same point is being made. Just because you get quarterback, 5, 6, etc., doesn't mean you're getting a bad quarterback. At number 15 for the Chicago Bears, TJ Parker would be right on cue for what Dennis Allen loves. I would say TJ Parker provides a little bit more upside based on him being just a consistent edge versus being a little bit more of a tweener with Falk. I'm going to go after TJ Parker here for the Bears. At number 16 for the Browns, we've gone after Lenora Sellers. And, I mean, we'll see if Isaiah McGuire can really hang. But honestly, I think going after a solid offensive tackle is going to be super valuable here. We're going to go with the Utah boys here. Lamu as well as Fano have been the 2 tackles to be taken. Very, very reliable player. I mean, they're both like identical in size, but Lamu definitely has a little bit shorter arms than Fano. Otherwise, I would just say it's a lot closer of a race than maybe what some people would end up trying to say at the moment. 17 for the Arizona Cardinals. I'm just such a sucker for taking tackle to them, but I got to think of some other things just to keep you guys entertained. And it looks like my Pookie Bear number 1 player, when healthy, of the class last year in Will Johnson is working out for y'all. Very excited about that. I will say that the positions I want to target for you are wide receiver, right tackle, and then I said wide receiver while highlighting linebacker, which is still true, as well as linebacker. Those are like the 3 biggest positions. And wide receiver with Mekhi Lemon is starting to really make sense. He is my wide receiver 3 right behind Chris Bell. But the way that he attacks the game just feels so much more compatible with Marvin Harrison Jr. that I just think that you can't miss. He needs to go somewhere in the first round, and he's going to be making a home here in Arizona. At number 18, we have the Houston Texans. And Jeremiah Love's honestly the target I'm going to be going after here. There's a lot of good players, and offensive line honestly still should be kind of a focus. It does suck to see that you guys are still having to deal with some issues there, but Jeremiah Love is definitely going to be a huge upgrade in the running back room and will take a bit of the pressure off CJ. At number 19, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And normally I have a tight end here in Kenyon Sadiq to take. That is not the case. So, how are we going to address this pick here? Normally, I also have David Bailey. So, I always have like somebody I can just quickly slide into that number 19 spot, but not today. So, let's think about it. Honestly, I'm a huge fan of Denzel Boston taking over for, going back to back first round wide receivers. Sounds a little crazy, but Emeka is going to, in my opinion, be the long term Chris Godwin. And Denzel Boston, with his contested catch ability, I don't know why it says 0, but he's a reliable catcher. And then also he does punt returns too. And you guys have like McMillan and stuff on the squad. But this is going to be your replacement, essentially. Sounds mean to say that, but for Mike Evans. Now, Carnell Tate could be fun. You pair him up with Emeka again. But for the Buccaneers, just continuing to load up on special talents that are just unique. Not many guys at 6'4" have the change of direction ability that Denzel does on the move. He is their primary punt returner. So we're going to test this out. Let me know what you think. Again, I am more than excited to hear how you guys end up, approaching this and then end up telling me like where you think I can improve, where the logic doesn't add up. At number 20 for the Cincinnati Bengals. Edge rusher is going to be where I instantly key in on here. It looks like Shamar learned how to bull rush, thank God, which he should have done a lot more at Texas A&M. Very excited to see that, and I think Keldrick Falk could end up learning the same. We'll see if Miles Murphy ends up taking that final step as the year goes on, because it is kind of just like a make it or break it year for him in terms of being that starter, because Hendrickson's going to be gone after this year. So I'm going to go after Keldrick Falk here because I think the value is just too good. At 21 for the Minnesota Vikings, I am so consistent in going corner that I'm just going to try something different. We're going to go after probably a better player in Dylan Thieneman, defensive back out of Oregon. Long term, the safety position still needs to get a bit more depth in it, or at least a bit more talent. And Dylan Thieneman is one of the best safeties in the entire country, if not the best. I don't think the gap is remotely as close as what people think. He is my number 8 player on my board. Extremely smart. Just has a little bit of athleticism concerns, but that's only when they're using him out of position. When he's able to roam and kind of play a Harrison Smith role, this guy is absolutely lights out. At 22 for the Niners, we've been going tackle for them forever, and I think we're just going to continue doing the same. Isaiah World needs a little bit more refinement. I do worry a little bit about him, but one pressure on the year. Granted, they haven't really played anybody. Definitely have seen him slipping up a little bit more than I expected, but still a top-end offensive tackle there from the Ducks. At number 23 for the Denver Broncos, again, another team that I would just love to put another Oregon player in Kenyon Sadiq, but he was taken long ago. This is another team that I would have also considered Denzel Boston too. Like, we'll see the long-term vision for this team, but Carnell Tate could essentially be what they were looking for with Emeka Egbuka, that they did not end up drafting, of course, because he was gone. But you could look at the defensive interior and edge group, and I really love Christian Miller at this point. Like, investing on your defensive front with somebody who can play pretty much anywhere is extremely valuable. Now, some people might want to pair up RJ Harvey with another power back. I'm not going to do that. But I definitely think there's some room for consideration in here. Linebacker as well, I think, is a dark horse. I'm going to go after Christian Miller because he is best player available to me. I love Pookie Bear Lawrence. I'm not going to take him this high. I like to blend my board with realism. I don't think that's realistic. I think it's a waste of your time if you guys are going to watch my show and you're going to get exclusively exactly what I would do. That's why I have a board, so you could see what I would do. And now you see why I might end up putting a Christian Miller to this team, where maybe you're like, oh, well, defensive interior, maybe not the biggest position. It's like, well, if you have a guy at number 7 and it's a position to consider, then it's a damn good deal there at 23. At 24 for the Washington Commanders. Again, I've talked about wanting to go edge for them so much. I will say, depleted the edge core. So we still might end up going that route, but let's consider some other options. I love the idea of going wide receiver, and Chris Bell is an absolute burner at 6'2", 220. He's my number 2 wide receiver in the class, or up 146 yards and a touchdown on the year. Definitely somebody that is going to continue to grow and develop because I love his route running ability, except for the fact that he doesn't ever get in the head of corners. Like, he doesn't do any route fakes. He just knows how to stop on a dime. Once he actually just learns the finer details of the game by doing that, I think he's going to be unstoppable. So we're going to go Chris Bell, wide receiver out of Louisville. At 25 for the Rams, already went John Mateer early in the first. And you just can't deny the talent. That's the thing. You just can't deny the talent. He is ridiculously talented. And I'm actually going to be going after one of my top offensive linemen, actually my top offensive lineman in the entire class. Again, this is based on 2023. Caleb Tiernan, left tackle. I do want him to probably try to switch over to right, but at the same time, maybe Alaric Jackson can learn to move to the right. I'm just going best player available. I could have went after a corner there, but there's also a lot of good corners on day 2. So I'm feeling very comfortable going after a position that I don't think would have any starters on day 2 and selecting Caleb Tiernan there. 26 for the Chargers. I'm consistently going after edge for this team no longer because, well, not really the best group. I actually am looking at Connor Lew for the Chargers. I do think in the first round, he's going to be a very valuable asset. Tight end wise, I don't really think the value is there. Defensive back, you could talk about it for sure. Diane Henley's looking much better as a linebacker. It looks like he's getting to his own. If you want to go after a nose plug, we could talk about Caleb Banks because he has 35-inch arms. I want to just see him healthy. Has not played this year. That's just kind of the big question mark for him. Thank you guys also for giving me some insight on that. But, Big Dom Orange definitely could be someone who slides into that role. But you could talk about Daryl Jackson, Dante Corleone, Tim Keenan. Nose tackle group is really solid this year. Really solid. And same thing with the center class. But Connor Lew is looked at as like a first round type of talent. If I'm not taking him here, he's going with the next pick. So I don't really care. I think that going after a solid interior offensive lineman is never a bad idea. And number 27 for the Detroit Lions, we have not drafted for them yet. But honestly, edge rusher is where I'd consider it. I think center would be great. I don't think there's another center that would go in this class. So I'm going to be going after a linebacker. You got Sonny Styles, who I think is fantastic. Whit Weeks, who definitely works. I really would love to be able to see the other Ohio State linebacker. And that kind of sucks. How the hell do you not have Arvell Reese in here? Arvell Reese, definitely somebody we'll end up imagining he returns because it's first year starting and he's a true junior, but definitely a name I want to toss into this mix. We're going to go Sonny Styles here out of the Ohio State University. Gritty player, obviously used to those elements up there in the Big Ten, just one of the better linebackers in the country. And, I'm not shy to say that he's up there. And if you want to say he's the best, he easily could be. At number 28 for the Kansas City Chiefs, we're going corner here. Not because I think they need it above all else, but it's because it's the best value. We're going to go with Mansour Delane, cornerback out of LSU. Great athlete, developing in terms of his overall coverage ability, extremely flexible, played multiple positions at Virginia Tech, and just an absolute baller. He's a number 1 corner for LSU, and he looks like an LSU number 1 corner. Tell me that doesn't get you excited, and I would say you're lying. And number 29 for the Dallas Cowboys went LT Overton early in the first. Sitting here at number 29, I still do want to look at a future option at offensive tackle. Just looking at the guys available, I just don't have faith in them, guys. I just don't. I hate to say it, I don't have faith. For Maui Goa, he's a guard. That's my humble opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it. I respect a disagreement. I welcome disagreement. But at the same time, I don't see that. Defensive interior, again, we can go Big Dom Orange, Caleb Banks. I think that would be a repeat of a recent mock draft with Caleb Banks. And maybe some injuries will make him fall. So we'll go after someone who's another really good player that we can end up sticking immediately next to Kenny Clark. And that's Dom Orange. Dom Orange, Big Citrus is just, he's a renowned name. First off, Big Citrus. That's an A+ name. That should get you drafted in the first. But on top of that, he is just a very reliable presence on the interior. You need to stop the run. This guy's already doing it. And he's doing it against some really top-end teams. The problem is, recently versus Iowa, they started using him randomly over the tackle. They just had these weird-ass reps and weird positions they're putting him. And it's stop trying to be sexy. Stop trying to be fancy. Just do a good job. And that's all you need to do. At number 30 for the Baltimore Ravens, I think a top-end corner is not a bad idea at this point. You got Avion Terrell here, and it just feels perfect to replace not Marlon Humphrey, Jair Alexander, with a player who has a similar skill set, but is just younger and for the lack of a better term, not washed. So we're going to go Avion Terrell here out of Clemson. At number 31 for the Philadelphia Eagles, we'll see if Coop wants to stick to the nickel. I know that there's certainly some concerns over like whether he's going to play on the boundary or the nickel. He's playing in base set majority on the boundary. So TBD on that, but let's check out some options for this team. So I have ended up going after tight end for the Eagles before. And, Max Clare definitely is a name that, I ended up really throwing around there. But again, you have to start focusing on the strategy for the long haul. A lot of short-term guys have been traded for this past year. We'll see how that ends up turning out. But like wide receiver 3 always feels like a position Howie's going to try to trade and, kind of like gap fill, like just kind of, put the Band-Aid on it. Tight end, there's just not a good enough option at this point. You look at right tackle and there are options here. Like this is an opportunity, but the question is who can start now? Like Trevor Gooseby has a chance. Like there is a chance. Again, 3 pressures already on the year over 2 games. If there is somebody who could end up trying to develop into something, it would be Gooseby. But I mean, again, somebody who probably would want to go back to school and then rise up to be a higher pick with multiple years of experience. Like Proctor's just scary as shit. Maui Go is probably a guard, which is not going to really benefit the Eagles. If you want to replace Tyler Steen, I honestly think that would be a pretty good option, but not something you do in round 1. And I think this is why, especially if I'm the Eagles, I would have wanted to keep my picks, like especially those 5th rounders, and end up utilizing at least like maybe a 5th and a 3rd to be able to move up and maybe jump a team like the Niners who are trying to invest in their tackle position, where you could have gotten Isaiah World, who is a former right tackle and left tackle. Like there's just a lot of value with the picks that you have where you could end up maximizing the value there. So maybe tomorrow when we end up doing the 3-rounder, we could end up talking about that. But I don't believe there's a value on the table for offensive tackle the way that I really wish that there would be. Now, safety, there's definitely nothing there. And again, you guys have 2 really solid ones. We'll see. We have 1 more year left after this of Jordan Davis and 1 more year left of Moro Ojomo. Like one of them's going to get extended. The other one isn't. You could go Caleb Banks here at this point. Again, there's no trades in this. I do think Caleb Banks would be the right guy, especially if he's dealing with some health concerns. He doesn't have more eligibility off the top of my head. And so you're going to get someone with 35-inch arms, has some of the most dominant wins, and you're going to be able to pair him up with Jalen Carter for the long haul. And again, I do think maybe that extra year of development and health is going to be a really good thing. So we're going to trust that Coop goes to the boundary. We can trust Mac McWilliams in the slot. You guys know my opinion of him as a top 50 player on my board last year. And so we're going to go Caleb Banks. Again, going best player available, but someone who hasn't produced enough. But at 31 with 35-inch arms, you can probably bet on him being a big contributor in a year. At number 32 for the Buffalo Bills, another team that I have loved the idea of going after offensive line, or no, excuse me, not offensive line, linebacker. And there's some good players here. Anthony Hill Jr. makes a lot of sense. Again, I was talking earlier when I ended up selecting Sonny Styles to the Lions about Arvell Reese, who's not on here. And again, since he's a true junior, we'll just imagine he returns for the sake of it. I do like the idea of Kyle Lewis in the next round, but I do think out of realism, we could talk about Anthony Hill here. A lot of people love Anthony Hill, and people are talking about him as like a cheaper version of Jahad Campbell. Now, Jahad fell to 31 with a shoulder issue. That is yet to come to fruition. He is damn good. So we're going to go after Anthony Hill here at 32. At 33 for the New Orleans Saints, we ended up selecting Garrett Nussmeier in round number 1. Here in round number 2, a couple routes we could go, but one of them that needs to kind of continue being patched is this edge rushing group. And with Mateo Uiagalelei here, Denis Dennis Sutton, it's hard to say no to these guys. We're going to go after Denis Dennis Sutton. Quality edge rusher out of Penn State. Probably will go higher, but again, with no trades, like I would easily trade out of 32. For the Eagles, would probably debate trading out of 31. Like the Cowboys out of 29. There's just spots where if you wanted to go after a quality edge rusher, you easily could. At number 34, we have the Cleveland Browns. And we've taken Lenore Sellers and Caleb Lamu. For me, I'm a sucker for a storyline. I think a position you could look at is corner based on How they're handling Denzel Ward right now, it could be that he's on the move, but when you have Nick Harbor that you could pair back up with his star quarterback and Lenore Sellers, that's just something that you want to do. And again, something where these teams that are looking to trade back, I would definitely be looking for the Browns to make a move up. Nick Harbor, wide receiver out of South Carolina, goes at 34, 6'5", 235, and will be running a 4.3. At number 35, we have the New York Jets, who drafted Drew Aller already. And good spot to be in. There's definitely good options everywhere. One of them being wide receiver, and being a reliable wide receiver too sounds just perfect to me. And that's what Carnell Tate has done. He's elevated from that wide receiver 3 mold to a wide receiver 2. And I really like that. Don't know if he's at that wide receiver 1 mold, and not many players are. So I'm perfectly happy going after Carnell Tate to the Jets. At number 36 for the New York Giants, we went Spencer Fano in the first. And at this point, I think that you got to pull the trigger on Jermod McCoy. He's just big, physical, higher IQ. Definitely gonna be somebody that you want to give a little bit of love to. Hopefully the injuries aren't that serious, but if Will Johnson could slide to the second, so can Jermod McCoy. At 37 for the Panthers, we went Caleb Downs in the first, and at this point, honestly, a corner 2 feels pretty adequate. Like, you can't just be relying on JC the whole time. Now, I know that there's some good role players there, but fix the secondary. Just do that, and then we could look at the linebacking core in like round 3 and beyond. I'm going to go after DJ McKinney out of Colorado. He's had a really solid season so far. 55 yards allowed with an interception. I think that's a really good way for him to start. So DJ McKinney, cornerback out of Colorado, going at number 37. At 38 for the Tennessee Titans. So we had a quick run on wide receiver and corner there. We went Jordan Tyson in round number 1 for Tennessee. I feel very happy about going after Jordan Tyson now, because you have Mateo Uiagalelei here. You have Joshua Josephs, Max Llewellyn, who I think would be a little bit more of a 3rd round target. I got Pookie Bear Lawrence here, but I do think that he also will be more in that 3rd to 4th round range. My next best edge based on all of this, besides Max Llewellyn, would be, oh, look at that. Number 40 is blank. That's because it was my king, Jaheim White. So these guys are moved up. Derek Moore, definitely a good name in this group. Mikhail Kamara. There's just a lot of really good players in the mix. But Mateo does feel like the most likely option at this point. Kenyatta Jackson definitely could be if he develops a little bit more, but probably going to end up staying. R. Mason Thomas is a monster. Cassius Howell is the name that's rising up really quickly, but I do think he is more of a pass rusher than anything. Derek Moore actually kind of is the same. So I can't really say much about that. But just some good options regardless. In fact, I will actually go after Cassius Howell. He is red hot. Was listed 6'4", 255, and all of a sudden he's 6'2", 248. But the guy got 3 sacks on back-to-back plays. Back-to-back, I should say. And so I'm going to give him some love. At 39, we have the Las Vegas Raiders, who drafted defensive interior with Peter Woods. Right tackle still is a question, and you could test it out with Francis Mauigoa. But with A.J. Harris here, I feel like you have to not ignore the corner spot. Damani Jackson, love him to death. Dave Snake Benosin, him as well. I just think A.J. Harris is going to be a little bit more balanced. I am worried because the way he loses is atrocious. A.J. Harris is, I believe, my corner 16 personally. I know that sounds crazy to a lot of people. I do think Damani Jackson is better. Maybe I should just give y'all Damani Jackson. How about that? We'll give you guys the player that I think is better. It's a pretty close group. Damani Jackson's a damn good player, has the athleticism as well, and hopefully we end up seeing. Why am I forgetting his name? I literally took a picture with the guy. Iowa State corner you guys drafted in the 3rd last year. Hopefully he ends up taking a step up. At number 40 for the Miami Dolphins, Kenyon Sadiq went in the 1st round, and that's going to be pretty ballsy. Pretty ballsy. I'm actually going to look at CC Mauigoa at this point and just continue rebuilding. Whether he's a guard, whether he's a tackle, I don't care. He is worth the risk. We'll go after him here because even as a tackle, he'd be worth about this amount or about this spot. So it's very, very good value. At 41, you also take him from the New England Patriots, who are sitting there after drafting Ruben Bain in the 1st and are like, damn, would have loved to have drafted him. And a lot of solid receivers at this point. I feel very happy with this. Fingers crossed that he ends up getting back on the field. It just sucks that Antonio's been hurt, but Fingers crossed that he ends up having a good recovery and return. Antonio Williams could, well, to be fair, you don't want another guy like this. There's enough guys on your team who can end up playing a similar role to Antonio Williams. Elijah Surratt would be the guy who I would be targeting in terms of the bigger body threat. Maybe that could actually end up waiting. Deuce Robinson, good day 3 deep threat who is huge. Let's go elsewhere. Let's do that. Interior offensive line is still not solved. I'm just going to be honest. Like, you still need some help. And I'm looking at guys like Charles Jagasaw, who's a star offensive tackle and guard combination. Notre Dame needs to get their head and ass wire together and use this guy. He is their best offensive lineman. But Parker Brailsford is the other dude who I'd love to mention here. He is 6'2", 290 pounds, but this guy is an absolute menace. I mean, he's just a freaking workhorse, man. And one pressure on the year after, the Crimson Tide had a really tough time in week 1 versus Florida State. I think this is a good move. I mean, again, you could look at the tackles. I mean, Trevor Gooseby is the one that gets brought up a lot. Austin Barber has some experience at both sides. I do not like Blake Miller. Xavier Chaplin's a left tackle. So it's like, you can talk about Gooseby, who's played both on the left and the right, but he's playing primary left right now. And I don't know how you would feel about putting a player who has just under 120 reps at right tackle full time in the NFL. I personally wouldn't be a big fan. Austin Barber, though, could end up being that type of guy for you guys. I think it was 2022. He had some experience at right. Again, it's been so long. I just feel uncomfortable. I'd rather go after the player I trust the most, and that's going to be Parker Brailsford. Multiple years of being graded extremely highly. Just a good, high-quality interior offensive lineman. Just start checking off the question marks. I just feel so much better with that. 42 for the Falcons. Did not draft in the first round because that was part of the JPJ deal. JPJ looks good, though. He looks good. So I'm really happy with that. If CC Maui were here, maybe I would take a swing at right tackle. Maybe. But corner number 2 for the long haul is still a position I want to target. And I think AJ Harris at this point, like AJ Terrell, AJ Harris, let's just get them paired up and have the AJ twins. And number 43 for the Seattle Seahawks went David Bailey in the first. I would have loved AJ Harris here, but let's look at the other corners available because I do think it's one of the more underrated positions. And Davison Igbinosun's a damn good athlete. I do have Keith Abney here, who I have very, very high. The thing is, I just don't know if people are going to be taking him over these other corners here. And, the Seattle Seahawks are very smart. But Keith Abney doesn't have the athletic profile that I would necessarily be looking for if I were sitting and being with the Seahawks. I'd go after Igbinosun and just see if he can end up working down on the penalties. Allowed 66 yards this year. He's already been targeted 11 times. That's actually crazy. But definitely somebody who I think is continuing to prove himself as a pretty solid high floor corner. And on the boundary, getting a true 2 is always a plus. So we're going to go after Davison Igbinosun there and just continue retooling that defense. At number 44 for the Dallas Cowboys, went after LT Overton and Big Citrus in round number 1. We need to look here in round number 2 on the offensive side. And deep down, I just need to get some firepower because that wide receiver 3 spot is a bit vacant, and we can end up getting Antonio Williams here to end up getting a good connection with Dak and provide a little bit more deep threat ability like you guys already kind of have. But Antonio plays on the boundary and in the slot very well. I love the way that he can approach the game. So even though you guys might want a running back here, it's just personally the round 3 range is where I start feeling a lot more comfortable with the running back class. At 45 for the Indianapolis Colts, we went Fernando Mendoza in round number 1, like it seems like we've done in every single mock draft. But, regardless, the Colts, I do think they're also a team to look on the interior, the defensive line. And I feel like I've done this every time. So Lee Hunter's here. Lee Hunter's a baller. Really like Lee Hunter. Really like him. But I'm going to look at linebacker at this point because Whit Weeks just feels like an absolute savage. First off, he's a great linebacker. But secondly, really just, I could have ended up taking him for the Dallas Cowboys in retrospect, but I wanted to get an offensive guy in there. Whit Weeks is worth a mid-second to a high-second pick. It's just good value where you can continue getting some good leadership there with Whit Weeks. At 46 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, went Cade Klubnik in the first round. I want to continue solving that boundary corner position with a player with high zone IQ and some good grips, and that's going to be Keith Abney. He might be tied for my corner 1, but I do think the athletic limitations could end up pushing him a little bit more. I think he'll be running a 4.5 flat, and when you're going to have some of these other guys like Iggy, I think will be in the higher to low to mid 4.4s. People just get too much into the numbers. And so, you know what? Call it favoritism. I would have ended up probably taking Iggy if I ended up swapping this and ended up sending Abney earlier. At number 47 for the Bears, went TJ Parker in round number 1. This is where, for the Bears, because it's such a big need, I'm going to focus on the running back position. And Singleton and Coleman are both just absolute bruisers. So I'm not really looking for that style of running back. I'm going to be looking for a home run hitter. And you look at Damon Claiborne, 16.3 yards per carry on the year. And ended up having 3 touchdowns as well. We're going to go after Damon Claiborne here out of Wake Forest, my number 1 running back in the draft. At number 48 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, already selected nobody because that ended up turning into Travis Hunter. Again, interesting spot because, you could end up going after Coleman here based on sending Bigsby away. I will say LaQuint Allen, I would hope, could take that role, but he's not a power back the way that Singleton and Coleman can end up lowering the shoulder and just delivering the boom. I will say, boundary corner, another spot where we can end up trying to target somebody. To be fair, though, we've done such a good job at just depleting and just destroying any single chance of us going after a corner that fits this particular group. Tight end, Max Clare, not a bad idea because you already have the blocking element in there with Brenton Strange. It could be a nice 1-2 combo there. Wide receiver, you got covered. I'm going to go crazy here. We're going to go running back, and we're going to go Jonah Coleman. He looks healthy. I love that for him. He was a bit slower last year, just did not look in shape, did not look very healthy. And you could see in the drop off from 7 to 5.5 yards per carry. That's not just a system change. That definitely, you could see it on him as well. And this year, he just looks even more explosive. I'm a huge fan of how far he's come. At 49 for the Arizona Cardinals, with Mekhi Lemon in round number 1. I'm looking here in round number 2 at linebacker to throw a curveball. And I'm going to go after my number 1 linebacker in the class in Kyle Lewis. Harold Perkins, easy honorable mention here, but Kyle Lewis just gets no love, no respect. And it's some bullshit. Watch him and enjoy the tape you're about to see. This guy is super, super reliable. Very good linebacker there out of Pitt. At number 50 for the Houston Texans, ended up drafting Jeremiah Love in round number 1. Here in round number 2, we might go after the Mammoth here and Caden Proctor. But honestly, I'm going to test out because the offensive line's garbage as it is. I'm going to see if maybe we can kick in Blake Fisher to guard, and then we're going to move Ariante Ursary to right tackle and draft star tackle Xavier Chaplin at that left tackle spot. Just big, reliable, feisty, mean, really good player. Don't understand what this is all about because, he's just a very good player. But, I've been the one who's actually been against Xavier Chaplin, and I'm the one kind of just, honoring him right now compared to what PFF's trying to say. At 51, though, for the Buccaneers, went Denzel Boston in round number 1. This is a quick and easy one as well. Continue loading up on the firepower. Max Clare, tight end of The Ohio State University. Again, I keep clicking in here just so you guys get a look at something that maybe, you have to pay for this. He's listed up to 243. Good to see some updated numbers there because he's at 235 coming into the year. But he's going to be perfect to replace Cade Otton for the long haul. 52 for the Cincinnati Bengals, Keldrick Falk in round number 1. And here in round number 2, Max Clare would have been nice. Not going to be able to get that. I would say on the interior of the offensive line, it's a good opportunity to go after some of these higher end players. And Vega Leon is an absolute beast. Love him. And you can end up pairing him up right now with Fairchild and creating a nice 1-2 punch. Braun might be a little bit more schematically better than Eon, but this guy's a bruiser. He's built to be in the AFC North. So we're going to go after Oliva Vega, Eon. Don't get mad at me. But definitely like the flexibility because Fairchild, in my opinion, is doing a great job. I would like to go to the right guard spot in the first place. I wish they did that over at Penn State and ended up dealing with Drew Shelton at a guard just to see how he'd perform. But woulda, shoulda, coulda, didn't. But Dylan Thieneman went to the Vikings in the first round. Here in the second, Nick Singleton, honestly, as a bruiser back would not be a bad idea. I know there's some extensions there. You have the running backs for the next couple of years. But also cornerback-wise, this is a really good opportunity to test out what it would be like to have somebody who, even though D'Angelo Pons is 170 pounds, this dude is worth a first round pick if he has a couple more pounds on his bones. If this guy was like an inch taller, because he's 5'9", if he was 5'10", 180, people would end up talking about this guy as a potential like late first rounder based on just the height alone. But this guy's going to end up being a star in the NFL. Pair him up with Dylan Thieneman, and you're going to see some real physicality there. Even though he's small, this dude just bodies. I mean, he's dealing with Elijah Surratt every day in practice. Do you think this guy can't handle some power? Like, this guy's a beast. 54 for the San Francisco 49ers, Isaiah World in the first round. Here in the second, was George Kittle getting hurt a bit? I'm not against going after a tight end. I will say it does feel like there's a pretty big drop off. Like, I am a huge fan of Miles Kittelman. Statistically, he has not produced. Eli Raridan, huge fan of him, obviously. Has not produced. Also, they don't even have him in here. PFF, man. Like, come on. But, I mean, deep down, I would almost get Proctor here just so you have a future left and right tackle. But I'm not going to do that because that just kind of seems a little counterintuitive. But again, we can talk about the tight end position. It does feel a little bit lackluster at this point. Wide receiver is a sneaky one. You know the Niners like to just roll the dice on that position. And honestly, it's not that bad to go double tackle here. I'm not going to do it. We'll see about the safety position, but Zaki Wheatley, just going back to Penn State, you guys have done it before, but I think he's even better than the last time you ended up dipping your toes there. We'll see how the safeties end up working out over the entire year, but I just think the value is really solid for a high energy, really consistent safety. So we're going to go after Zaki Wheatley there. 55 for the Denver Broncos, Christian Miller in round number 1. Here in round number 2, I could end up going after interior offensive line and try to develop somebody. Wouldn't be a bad idea, but what are we doing round 1? Christian Miller. Wide receiver, I still think is a position you can go after. And man, I'm just debating on what style of receiver I'd be looking for. I'm thinking about Elijah Surratt here, just being like a very reliable contested catch threat. I don't know what this is all about, but his career contested catch percentage is like over 60 to 70%. This guy is just really, really good. But for some reason, my gut tells me that Jacoby Lane is a lot more up Sean Payton's alley. So we're going to go after that. Even though I don't really believe in Jacoby Lane at the moment, he's still doing a phenomenal job there at USC and has taken a big step up. At 56 for the Texans, we've taken Xavier Chaplin and Jeremiah Love. Could do Caden Proctor to guard, just kind of complete the trifecta because, I mean, apart from defensive interior, the defense is one of their biggest strengths. But, I mean, you could go after Darrell Jackson here. They do like to run a little more even front, if I'm not mistaken. Feel free to correct me on that one. But I'm going to go Lee Hunter, Texas Tech. They like staying in Texas. This guy's just a really, really high ceiling player on those third downs. At number 57 for the Los Angeles Rams went Mater and Tiernan. Really good duo. Really good duo. I'm going to get some deep speed here. And you can talk about Trey Wilson, Dion Burks. Zachariah Branch feels very Tutu Atwell. And I'm going to go after him. Casey Concepcion, another guy who's taken a massive leap back to what he was in 2023 when I was a huge fan of him. Really do like how far he has come, and especially as the returner that he is. Concepcion could definitely be that. I'm going to go after Zachariah Branch, though, because I do love seeing him get back to where he was a couple years ago. So we're going to go after Zachariah Branch to be the Tutu Atwell on this squad and provide that like absolute burner speed for Mater's arm. At number 58 for the Los Angeles Chargers, went after Connor Liu in round number 1. We are going to be going after an edge rusher here in round 2 because that's how we roll. And we got Mateo Uiagalelei. Like, again, he's somebody who I have a little bit lower than this, but, you know, definitely the technique is going to get him drafted around this range. At number 59 for the Detroit Lions, I'm also going to be looking at edge. Went after Sonny Styles there at 59. You know, looking at the edge rushers that fit this team the best. You talk about Derek Moore, but he's had an unimpressive start to the year. Ben Bell is a guy who I really enjoyed watching. He pops off. He passes the eye test. I have not watched him in all 22, but a very big name to watch. Obviously, I have some guys in here that I really like that are not listed. Like Max Llewellyn is listed, but Samuel Okunlola out of Colorado, he's having a struggle start to the year, but the entire team kind of is. And then also Malachi Lawrence. But trying to think of a good center here. I'm not a Jake Slaughter guy myself. Iapani has his big fan base. Uh, I'm more of a Davian Carter guy personally. This guy, I honestly would wait for. Oh, my king, Josh Thompson's in here. He's a guard. I just did not know he's in here. We're 100% going with him with one of the next picks. But honestly, I would just wait till the third round for the Lions to go after center and go after Davian Carter, who's sub 300 pounds at guard. So to fix another position for the Lions, I think I will be going after that edge spot. And, Kenyatta Jackson's very intriguing. Tyreek Sapp, y'all know my opinion on him. I was very unimpressed. Joshua Josephs is fun, just does not fit. Actually, Gabe Akis, it has a very big fan base. I'm not there with him, but this is actually a good spot for him to go and provide some good tweener aspect. At 60 for the Chiefs, went Mansour Delane in round number 1. You could look for the successor at tight end here, but again, it's the same situation I was just talking about. A lot of tight ends that I just don't really feel that are built for round number 2. And I think we're going to go back to the edge core here, and they do like a little bit of size to them. Kenyatta Jackson is the name that I'm thinking of, just continuing to, deploy and develop in this squad. Honestly, he is a monster. I mean, he's underproductive at this moment, but he went up against Grambling State with probably not that many reps. Texas is a tough way to start out. Like, I don't know. It does feel a little bit sad that he's not performing remotely as close to what he should. And there's not really an edge rusher that's built very large except my king here and Mikhail Kamara. Mikhail's down to 262. Very good for him. Very good. I'm a big fan of him. But let's look at some other spots just for fun. A running back with Singleton could be it. Yeah, let's do Singleton. We're just going to go best player available. At number 61 for the Green Bay Packers, ended up not selecting because we had Micah in the first. Caden Proctor is not a bad guy to develop. Honestly, you guys do a great job developing offensive linemen. This could be the time to do that. Your secondary has been nasty for how, honestly, underwhelming the names are on this team. Dalen Everett's definitely a name that I want to consider here. Besides that, you could continue talking about the defensive interior. Darrell Jackson actually is very good value, especially without Kenny Clark. We're going to go after Darrell Jackson Jr., defensive interior out of Florida State. Big nose, definitely just somebody who's a quality player on every single down. At number 62 for the Baltimore Ravens, went Avion Trell in round 1. I'm throwing the curveball here and going after one of my favorite players that I have yet to officially fully grade, but I loved how much he progressed at Northwestern and taking a big step up at LSU. Really like what I've seen so far. He just ended up being yanked twice by Peter Woods, which talk about a shitty way to start off your SEC, I guess he's with, SEC. SEC journey is going up against the king of the ACC. And, he still has only allowed 1 pressure the entire year. We're going to go after Josh Thompson, guard out of LSU. At number 63, we had the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's no secret. At this point, if you're here in the second round, you're going to draft Caden Proctor. I mean, you're going after 2 players that have kind of underwhelmed, but are both physical freaks. And luckily, your team is good enough to where you can end up doing that. We're going to go after Caden Proctor for the Philadelphia Eagles. And at number 64 for the Buffalo Bills, we went after Anthony Hill, a junior, in the first. I do think a safety definitely could be on the board at this point. I'm looking at Bud Clark. Emmanuel McNeil Warren's been extremely productive this year. Shout out to a king, Jalen Catalon. Kamari Ramsey's a slot, so I'm not really focused on him. Tao Johnson, is he playing more in the slot this year? No, he's definitely more of a flexible guy. He's somebody who's popped up a lot, but a little bit more in the slot than anything. So I'm Terry Moore though. Terry Moore's a good player. I mean, it sucks that I think he's injured at the moment, but Terry Moore popped off last year. I'm really hoping to get a little bit more tape on him. But I mean, you could try to get some deep threat ability in here. Eric Singleton, I do feel like you want someone who could play the boundary, and it could be Jeremy Bernard. The Casey Concepcion actually is not a bad choice though. Problem is he's more of a warmer climate guy. I just don't know how he's going to hold up over the long haul. So a little bit annoying in that regard. Good to see though that we have a lot of very good receivers on the list here for PFF, so I don't have to have placeholders tomorrow. But you know what? let's see. We'll go defensive interior for him because there's still some very good players. And I want to get a plug. And let's go after Tim Keenan, who ended up having surgery on his ankle. He's going to be coming back. So we're going to go after him. So that's going to be the video. Long at last. Thank you guys again, though, for showing all the love that you guys always do and just being so supportive. Thank you again. I'll see you later. Peace.